Hey guys, so welcome back. So there has been a research report by Pew, a very reputable research institution, that has surveyed regular people in countries around the world, asking them what is most important to them in their lives. And it can range from a huge number of attributes, from like your pets to your job to your family to hobbies to your material well-being. And guess which country out of all the countries listed who only put material well-being as number one, ahead of family, ahead of the occupation, ahead of everything else. Are Koreans that materialistic? Well, I want to break it down for you because it may not be what you think at all. So this came up to me again because I saw the report and, there were some discussions about it, but one of my Korean American friends, Ray, I'll just call you out right now. I know this is totally unsolicited advice through the YouTube, but you did ask through the Facebook why this is. And you were kind of confused about it as a Korean American, and that just jogged me as, hey, other people might be confused as well. Just to kind of paraphrase what he said, he was saying like, this kind of confuses me because when it comes to values or the meaning of life, why do South Koreans value material possessions or material well-being as more important than things like family or friends? Then he said, as a Korean American, I cannot understand why I would care more about what brand bag watch I have more than family or friends. Now that, I think, is actually the false equivalency here that I think many others would make when they hear material well-being. Because it's not about the excesses, the fanciness. It's not about champagne and caviar. Here in Korea, material well-being, even though they may make it look like it could be about those fancy things, is essentially, and this is a sad thing, but security. And I'm sure a lot of people around the world can also relate, especially as you go up in the age range. But in a more poignant and related matter, stick with my ADD for a moment, but we had a big win at the SAG Awards for my favorite actor, Lee Jung-jae, for Best Outstanding Actor in a TV series or drama for Squid Game, Lee Jung-jae, hoo-hoo, and also Chung Ho-yeon, the tough girl who played, she's like the model, but you didn't know that she was a model, but she was like a model before she became an actress, and this was her breakout role. And she also won Outstanding Actress at the SAG Awards this year for her portrayal of that really tough young North Korean defector doing the Squid Games for her brother. That movie was about putting material well-being ahead of everything else. And people are just like, oh my God, is it that dramatic? Oh my God, is it that? It can be. It can be, and it touched a nerve, about people around the world, so it's probably not just South Korea. But the thing is that when you get an unfair, unequal, crab-in-the-bucket society like Korea still is, you have people try to get material well-being ahead of anything else. And by the time you reach a certain age, friends and family, they don't mean as much because they've betrayed you. You've gone through many horrible experiences where they're just not as important because they cannot be relied upon as much as material well-being that you do for yourself. That is probably why, even on the younger age spectrum of this survey, Koreans answered in a similar format. Because we had Lee Jung-jae's character on the older spectrum, and we had Chung Ho-yeon's character on the lower end of the spectrum of Squid Games, and there are a lot of young people in Korea who see that the game is already rigged. They don't need to go through a lot of years because even at an early age, they've already experienced this unfairness and inequity and the cold hard truth that the only thing that'll be there for you is probably cold hard cash. We don't have a really strong safety net in Korea. If you get screwed over, there's not a lot that you can really do about it. You'll get run over by the big and powerful. Why is this even more relevant in our crazy moment right now with the world hanging in a balance of whether it's going to swing over to Putin or whether it's going to swing over to the side of justice and Ukraine? Because when you look at Korea, we are constantly in this, like I said, a delta, a middle ground of swaying back and forth. You see the result of actually a country that is transitioning towards, you could probably say South Korea is a generation ahead of Ukraine if Ukraine continues its path towards the EU and democratization. It's not going to get rid of all of the authoritarian structures overnight. It's not going to get rid of that sort of mindset overnight. But what you then get to start seeing is a clash of these two systems and a struggle daily back and forth of who is going to win out, and the people trying to create and implement systems that cannot be defeated so that eventually you don't have to only rely upon yourself. What this survey does show me is that Korea is still quite a scary place where you have to only fend for yourself. Now, we have glamorized that, and I, for one, am sorry about my part in that as well, of probably over romanticizing Korea's pull yourself up from the bootstraps and create a, woohoo, like from the ashes. But what this really does show is that you can say the strong survive, but what is strong in a Putin style Russia? What is strong in an authoritarian style regime? It's the bullies, it's the heartless, it's the people who will cut even their own family and friends off just in order to get ahead. And it's not get ahead in the sense of like what you think of maybe in a posher Western environment. For some people, that is like what they just have to do to survive. Talked to another friend just recently over in the States, and he was trying to kind of get a sense of this mindset where you really have to scramble, and he was just thinking like, oh, you have to like kind of maybe step over people at the top in order to succeed. I was like, no, in Korea, everybody from cleaning ladies to mid-level managers to like everybody is having to be always on a hustle. And I was just like, you know what? I think the American dream is actually not necessarily, even though it does incorporate, being able to go to extraordinary excesses of entrepreneurial success, but really the core of the American dream is, now that I see when immigrants flee to America to escape these authoritarian systems, is to just be able to have a normal life without sacrificing your friends and family for your material well-being. Here in Korea, it still shows from this data that you may have to sacrifice your friends and family for your own material well-being and your health. First, material well-being came up. Second, health. Third, family, and family, that's only probably because it's just used as an advantage or a tool in order to secure health and material well-being. Then fourth was general positive. I don't know what the heck that is. That's probably just keep your mind straight as you're trying to hustle. And Fifth was a general kind of blend of society and freedom. And I think that is the kind of roots of democracy that is trying to, and the civil society that is trying to develop to start being more of a solidifying structure to create a well-balanced life. Because there are people who want to have what you would look at some of the well-living countries where family comes first, then occupation, then friends, then material well-being, then society, or hobbies, or religion, or occupation. Notice how in Korea, material well-being ranked number 1, yet occupation is nowhere to be found on the top 5. How are you supposed to get material well-being without occupation? What this shows to me is that it don't matter where your money comes from. That is sort of still like a thuggish society. That is still similar-esque to what a Putin style of world would be if it continues to creep through and take over other nations and starts to infect modern liberal democracies. What you can really get as a value from looking at Korea is seeing what would happen if you are a well-established functioning country that starts to decay towards authoritarianism. It'll start to adopt similar strains and kind of horribleness of South Korea. But on the other hand, if you are coming from an like a hard authoritarian regime and you're moving towards democracy, you're also going to start seeing a lot of similarities to South Korean society, civil society, the way that there are some wins in that arena. So if you want to see, like if you're kind of thinking like, oh, what would happen if we start, falling or lagging behind? Look a little bit into the box of South Korea. What would it be like? What's the hope if we can kind of rise up and, see like what's realistic? Look at South Korea. I don't think it doesn't really help like an total authoritarian country that is now transitioning to then look at something like a Scandinavian country and see like, okay, well, how do we get there? Look at South Korea. Old Russian culture, Korean culture, so similar. And that is the authoritarianism part of the culture that we're trying to really progress from, because there is also a strong democratic spirit as well in South Korea. That's what makes South Korea probably a little bit confusing. It's like, which one are you? Well, just look at the peninsula. We got North and South Korea. So, we're both. The people here, they got both in their brain. What do they want? This is really, you need me to understand this. They want both of them sometimes. Actually, sometimes all the time. So this is the conflict that people have, because in the short term, you can't, if you don't have the fully developed democracy, then you're going to opt for the safety of the authoritarianism. Or in this case, with this report, if you don't have the fully developed like social security and the safety net and, HR departments and civil liberties and, all of these best practices to lean back upon, then you gotta take care of yourself no matter how. And if it does mean sacrificing things that are precious, that are really held dear as parts of just living life in other countries, people will do it. And that's what we saw dramatized in the Squid Games. That's why these actors did it so well. That's why they knew it so well. It's what this writer of the Squid Games understood and saw really early on. Remember, he wrote it 10 years ago and he's been working on this script, perfecting it, probably adding a lot more as he went along. Because you guys, this is a warning. This is what decades of dictatorship do to a person's life and mentality. When we see the people actually, as my last point, the people who have brought in material well-being, what I have seen in Korea, the people that do succeed, they're the bullies. They're the ones that actually have destroyed their families. They're the ones that are not liked by their families. They're the ones that have really rubbed society the wrong way, to put it the nice way, but have really done a lot of crazy stuff. And I'm not talking about like on a politician, public figure level, just on like, I talk to my friends and other people I know and talk about their family dynamics and see like, okay, well, there's always that person in the family you can't really say much about because they were the one who could bring in the bacon, but the way that they're acting is literally like modeled after the dictators that have come through Korea and shaped the mindset of what it takes to survive under that kind of regime. And if you want that to spread throughout the world, and if you want your life to suddenly then have to pander towards a dictator, have your freedoms taken away, and if something bad happens to you, you really have nowhere to go and you just have to suck it up on your own, and then you're blamed for not being able to hustle and get material well-being no matter how much it takes, even if it means sacrificing your friends, family, and not even caring about your occupation, then go on right ahead and let Putin continue to roll on forward with his tanks. If not, do what you can, put every single little effort, stop this kind of spread. It is a madness that infects every single country, but right now we have the biggest flare-up on the world stage as we've seen over in Ukraine. So everybody, I hope we all pray for Ukraine. We all pray for the people who are living under these types of conditions. And again, congratulations to our Squid Game stars. We love you. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.